Now we need to talk about why he stopped claiming blood.
When YouTuber and self-proclaimed most popular white blood in the world, 1090 Jake, announced that he was denouncing his affiliation with the Bloods, it sent the internet into an uproar. I mean, if we being honest, being blood is pretty much 1090 Jake's whole identity and has been since he arrived on the scene. And while many commended and applauded him for displaying this quote unquote growth, there would also be those who would question his motivation for doing so, with many more questioning whether his affiliation was ever authentic to begin with. In order to truly understand 1090 Jake's change of heart, we can't just look at the change. We have to go back a couple years and look at what prompted the change.
Cliff World, y'all don't. Hey, y'all gotta make sure y'all go follow Cliff World too. Cliff World be doing some cold reactions. He he from I want to say Pine Bluff or Little Rock, one of them motherfuckers. But he be doing some cold shit and he growing his channel and shit too. Definitely go tap in with him and let him know who sent you.
1090 Jake's channel started out as a simple recounting of events that he had allegedly gone through or witnessed.
I like Sprite, my guy.
As we all know, the internet consistently reinvents itself. So the interest in those stories would eventually die down, and Jake would have to reinvent himself if he wanted to stay relevant in his YouTube space. He would try his hand at activism, covering topics such as the challenges that women face in Florida prisons, interviewing correctional officers and ex-correctional officers about things from their perspective, and even going on the news discussing contraband issues and how it's led to a high mortality rate in the Florida Department of Corrections. And while those were
now notice how his perspective, he said he was doing activism shit, but everything that none of that all of that activism shit, his version of it, remember what I was saying earlier, it's only going to target shit that affects degeneracy, and I'm not trying to say that to put motherfuckers down, you know what I mean, because most of us come from it, you know what I mean, but it's to highlight or to normalize, like, are we trying to talk about fixing the, let me back it up so he can say it again so I can articulate it a little better.
Interviewing correctional officers and and at activism eventually died down, and Jake would have to reinvent himself if he wanted to stay relevant in his YouTube space. He would try his hand at activism, covering topics such as the challenges that women face in Florida.
You want to cover the challenges that women face, and you know what I mean? Like I said, but you're a blood member though, and a white one at that, so your voice would be louder. It could be heard. You know what I mean? You gotta pay attention. But as we've been learning today, we're unpacking the reasoning. You know what I mean?
Prisons, interviewing correctional officers and ex-correctional officers about things from their perspective, and even going on the news discussing contraband issues and how it's led to a high mortality rate in the Florida Department of Corrections. And while those were positive and productive topics to speak on, they did not generate the type of income that 1090 Jake was looking to make from YouTube or that he had experienced in his original viral moments. At some point, I believe that Jake realized that controversy sells is a true statement, and this is where he decided to reinvent himself again. You see, with fame comes scrutiny. The bigger you are, the more eyes you have watching, the more people who are trying to fact check your story. And as Jake would go to these different platforms and tell stories about getting his face cut and slitting people's throat, these really violent stories, there were a lot of people who called nonsense. You see, aside from Jake's claims that he was a violent guy, there was also his claim that he was a member of a predominantly black gang known as the Bloods. And while Jake may have thought that this would bolster his credibility and make him appear as some solid guy, it actually added to the scrutiny. This would lead Jake down a path of trying to prove himself. And at some point, he would use the notoriety that he gained from YouTube to make his way into the presence of documented guys like Corey King. And at this point, Jake's message, along with his social media presence, became less about activism and more about proving that he was an actual affiliate. Slowly, the interviews with...
I remember that. I remember when he came to Nojumper with a bunch of New York Bloods, top Florida Bloods that he grew up with a bunch of reputable, well-known, the ones that he would later go on to say were broke and the reason why he's no longer claiming it. He'll get them back in the video, but I just want to preface, you know what I mean?
Correctional officers and ex-correctional officers turned into pictures in the projects with members and ex-members, and it went from holding up a DOC badge to throwing up gang signs. Still, there were a lot of people who were skeptical of Jake. As I said before, the Bloods were a predominantly black gang. And for years, black gangs and organizations have dealt with operations such as COINTELPRO, where white guys are sent to portray themselves as affiliates or members or guys who are down in an attempt to gain information about how that organization or gang works. And this is what a lot of people view 1090 Jake as. So he found himself in what we call a catch-22, because the more he went around these guys and attempted to portray himself as a down member, the more people would say, man, they got that white boy over there, that's some police, that's the police, y'all better watch him, he the police. And I'm not saying all white guys that hang around black people are cops, but black paranoia will definitely tell you that 9 times out of 10. It was at this point that I think Jake let the opinions of the internet get the best of him, and what seemed like a win turned into...
That probably is a good part to cut in and offer a little bit of nuance on that shit, because I don't want it to get taken like a motherfucker saying that any white person that is a member of a black gang is bullshit, or they a fuck motherfucker, or they somebody like him. That's not the case. It can be for a good percentage, even if that percentage were 35%, or you know what I mean, whatever the percentage is. I'm not trying to discount any real authentic person anywhere. You know what I mean? Uh 1090 Jake may be a terrible representation. He may give motherfuckers a bad look, shit like that. But like I say, none of this is about him and motherfuckers like him. This ain't about everybody, because I do know some solid down motherfuckers. Some motherfuckers that, like I say, that paranoia on initially, I thought that was fool. I thought that was goofy. But as you get to know motherfuckers and see how motherfuckers rotate and how they move, and they actually are some solid individuals. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because I don't want it to come across. I don't want to give off the wrong impression. But yeah, let's go.
To a really huge L. Now, I'm not sure if Jake inserted himself into this situation because he and 6ix9ine were both claiming blood, or if he was just riding a wave of hot topics because his views were kind of low at that point. In any case, Jake would take to YouTube and discuss how he doesn't believe being a snitch will affect 6ix9ine's career, but at the same time stating that his moral code will not allow him to even listen to 6ix9ine. Fans would take to the comment section.
Hey, like the video, chat. If you ain't liked it already, man, do me a favor, like it, man. It help me in the algorithm. If you really fuck with it, share it somewhere. I don't know where, but share it somewhere, man. If you really fuck with it. Or the content. You ain't gotta fuck with me. You fucking with the content.
Saying that Jake and others who were speaking on 6ix9ine were actually just like him. They didn't see a reason for 6ix9ine to be loyal to those guys. And some were even saying, hey, I believe you and 99% of the other guys who are speaking on this would do the same thing he did if put into that situation. This would cause Jake to go into another frenzy of trying to prove himself. Only this time, it wasn't just him. He had some backing. He had some members. He had guys around him vouching for his validity and credibility. Considering that we can't find, or he hasn't shown a single picture where he had this kind of backing and was moving around in these kind of groups before the launching of his YouTube channel, I believe that this backing and this social circle is what gave him the confidence.
Look at this shit, y'all. I'm gonna let him finish, but look at this photo op. This like when Bill Clinton used to kiss black babies and shit. So they gonna take this picture like this with look like upwards of 30 motherfuckers. He wants you to think that this how he rolling. That's the entourage. This his hood. This the people he fuck with. This the block. That ain't the case. I'm looking at it, I know this ain't the case. I'm looking at motherfuckers and I can tell, oh, that motherfucker look like he from the north. He look like he from the south. He look like he from the west. You know what I mean? These people don't even know each other. Just goof ass shit, goof ass photo opportunity.
To do what he did.
And he in the center. Get the fuck out of here.
Next, which was take on the entire music industry, the whole rap industry. Seemingly upset that people were comparing him to 6ix9ine, and possibly even more upset that although the fans clearly didn't believe him, they were name dropping rappers like DMX as the real deal. Jake would turn his attention to the rappers.
I don't think that if 6ix9ine didn't tell, people would be saluting him. Not at all, because they still would have felt like, oh, well, he's weak, whatever. I don't think there's any change in their mind, and the fact that he snitched and he still has those supporters, they're still gonna stay there, because it doesn't affect them. But I'm interested in how it's gonna affect the music industry. Who is gonna go against their moral code, or who is gonna go against the street code that everybody swears that they abide by, and who is really gonna break down the pros and the cons of doing a collaboration with him, or trying to collab with him, knowing how much attention he's getting right now, and weighing out the benefits. I feel like a lot of people will, and I feel that unless something tragic happens to him, nothing's gonna change. He's gonna be the same old 6ix9ine doing the same stunts, and he's going to keep that attention on him because he knows how to incite drama and keep the flame going.
Having gotten a taste of what it's like to cover the music industry, how profitable it is, and the attention and notoriety that comes with covering high-profile cases, Jake would continue to do so, especially after seeing the boost in his numbers. Of course, covering cases means looking over paperwork and sometimes identifying or addressing a snitch. And the fans of these rappers would go hard on Jake, telling him to mind his business, some even questioning what credentials he has to even look at the paperwork, not to mention speak on the paperwork publicly and call out somebody else for possibly cooperating. Feeling cornered by the fact that he just wasn't being accepted, Jake would make his next move a bold one. And the focus of his channel would go from prison stories and activist-type storytelling to reviewing rappers' cases, and ultimately it would just turn into exposing rappers, dropping paperwork.
Boy, he said that, I just want to go back to that picture and how the rollout for the now just take a excuse me. Apologize, forgive me, y'all. Scale it back, take a step back from the close up and look at the full picture of this. Him doing all these photo ops and clicking up, or not clicking up, but linking up with reputables and all this shit. That was the rollout for for lack of a better word, that was the rollout for him to begin doing this paperwork shit. That was like his validation. the shit that was gonna get motherfuckers to be like, okay, yeah, he the truth. He the truth. He know what he talking about. He reputable and all this shit. You know what I mean? It's somebody back. Yeah, we're gonna go.
Work. He did the Boston Richie situation where he exposed him. He then attempted to expose 03 Greedo. Then he turned his attention to Finesse 2 times. Then he focused on the YSL case with Young Thug and Woody. Of course, there was some financial gain, but that did not take away from the fact that Jake's motive seemed to be showing people that he was real and that these rappers who they believed in were fake. It's like he just became obsessed with proving people wrong. But don't take my
And you were
word.
getting that just because you were curious or because you wanted to show somebody?
Videos on it.
Oh, doing videos, right?
This is
Oh,
me
shit,
in
yeah,
prison. Oh, you never got to fight in prison? Okay, I got multiple DIs.
Right.
The fuck you mean? I did over a year in confinement in prison.
Uh.
Oh, you didn't do all that. All right, well, here's the paper. You know what I mean? So that was back when it was like, oh yeah, you were in prison, but you weren't doing this. So I'm bringing on everybody I was in prison with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there was nothing that you could question at that point. But I was trying to like prove myself in a sense because I was new to the YouTube shit. The fact that I can show you like, yeah, your favorite rapper that you thought was so gangster, the one that you want to be like, the whole rat.
Y'all just wait, cause we gonna get. we might get to it here. I think we're gonna get to where these people that he was locked up to, how they came on his channel, locked up with, how they got on his channel, or potentially why.
Right.
So it was like, you know, because that was the whole reason I started doing the snitch shit. Because in the beginning, when we were doing the prison videos, like me and all the people that I brought on that I was doing time with, it always had a message with it. Like, look, we did this, don't do what we did. So then when I started doing the snitching shit, it was like, look, rap is influential. A lot of people will listen to shit and then stop wanting to do it. I mean, you can look at it with the drugs, you can look at it with the violence. Everybody, when they start rapping about 30s and switches, everybody got a 30 and a switch now. You know what I'm saying? So you can't say it isn't influential. With that being said, if you got people following in your footsteps thinking that you this super big gangster, and we showing like, look, that's not really who he is. When he got jammed up, he told. When you got jammed up, you didn't say shit. Now you got a life sentence because you thought you were a gangster like him. The whole time he ain't even that.
Jake would continue in his attempts to expose rappers and the rap game and was seemingly finding some success in doing so. Yet with each video, the target on his back got bigger because as he would expose these rappers, he was also making enemies out of their fan bases. There were also those who remembered how he started and were justifiably confused on how a person could go from being on the news, talking about the operations of prison gangs and drug operations, to calling other people out for being snitches. At this point, the hunt was on and several different media outlets would begin researching 1090 Jake and trying to find some type of paperwork demonstrating that he had cooperated with authorities and was not as real as he was claiming he was. Each time Jake would respond and have an excuse for the paperwork saying that it was fake or that nobody was arrested and he lied to police. And though we all know that just because a person has an excuse doesn't mean that they are excused, the fact that Jake was still in the presence of documented and real outstanding members is what kept his credibility intact. His fans would always use the excuse, well, if he's a rat, why is he around these real members? He's hanging out with real documented guys. Why are they with him if he's a rat? Just when it seemed that Jake had everything under control and was on his way all the way to the top, boom. In 2023, Jake would engage in an argument with a friend of mine over the internet, and some pretty disrespectful things were said. To be honest, Jake was not even on my radar, but based on the conversation and things that were said, my interest was sparked. Let me look into this guy. He's saying some stuff that only somebody that's really like that should be saying. Being knowledgeable of how to get paperwork, I said, hey, this guy pulling everybody paperwork, I'm gonna go pull his. But I took a different approach because Jake had talked so much about his prison encounters and things that he had done in prison. I wanted to go see how much of that was true.
Now it's about to get good, y'all. If you here now, make sure you like that, hit that like button, man. Hit that subscribe. It's gonna get good now. Now let's figure out who Jake really is.
As opposed to trying to find some paperwork on what he had been doing out here in the streets, because it was obvious he didn't have a real criminal history, not a lengthy one anyway. What I found was that Jake had not only fabricated some of his prison stories, but that he had also snitched himself, as we see right here on this document. He wrote that on 1/16/14, I was sitting on my bunk when inmate Jimmy Horry hit me in the head with a rock and a sock. Now, in this document, Jake would go on to describe his troubles in the Florida Department of Corrections, specifically that he was being abused and intimidated by the staff, that inmates were threatening him, the staff was threatening him, and that he really needed help. He was not safe in confinement, specifically saying, I'm being blackmailed, help me. I would then uncover another document in which Jake wrote that because he had wrote the previous document, he was being continuously threatened by staff and denied food, and was told that if he was released from confinement, that inmate he was being
Hold on, we're gonna read these. Let's read these.
Now, in 1614,
all right. On 1/16/14, I was sitting on my bunk with inmate Jimmy Horry. First name, last name. Oh shit. First name, last name, and inmate number. Jesus. But that's not paperwork because it's a grievance. He's not snitching because that's a grievance. 1090. Okay, he hit me with a rock and a sock on my head. This was during morning shift change. The officer came in and cuffed him. They got something blanked out. He then checked all the inmates and found that Mark Cherry. Who the fuck is Mark Cherry? I thought his name was Jake Cherry. Huh? Wait. Oh, who? Wait a minute. This is getting interesting. We got to figure out who this Mark Cherry person was. because Jake Cherry is 1090 Jake. Huh. Byron. We got to figure this out. But anyways, was also assaulted. So him and at this point, what I'm gonna say, your kinfolks was also assaulted. More staff came and then cuffed me, Mark Cherry and Jerry Lewis. We were all taken to the back room of B dorm. Inmates Horry and Lewis were said to be inmates. I was trying to see if maybe that said Horry and not Cherry, but no, it says Mark Cherry and Lewis were said to be the assaulters, and me and Mark Cherry the victims. Mark Cherry and Jake Cherry the victims. Okay. I then witnessed Sergeant Martin start beating inmate Jerry Lewis. Eventually, Sergeant Martin, Captain Sapp, Officer Cooley, and a few other officers that were called for emergency. What did that say? Traffic. Beat inmate Lewis and inmate Horry. Captain Sapp then, motherfucker came. I don't know what the fuck they say. Took us. Oh, can't spell. Took us. I don't care. Oh, excuse me. He told us, I don't care who did what. All of you are getting charges if you write anything. But what I say, we'll beat your fucking ass till you need to go to the hospital.
I was sitting on my bunk when inmate Jimmy Horry hit me in the head with a rock and a sock. Now, in this document, Jake will go on to describe his troubles in the Florida Department of Corrections.
All right. I was then forced to write that I was assaulted and fought back in self-defense, which is untrue. Y'all hear that? Jake's testimony. This is the big blood gang. This is the big blood that was turned up on the Florida compounds. He says, I'm gonna repeat this. I was then forced to write that I was assaulted and fought back. He put the fought back in quotations in self-defense, which is untrue. Officer Cooley, who wrote me a DR, possession of a weapon and assault on an inmate, lied in both statements. He says he witnessed me assault with a lock tied to a sock. That he witnessed him being assaulted and says I struck another inmate with a damn man. This motherfucker can't read for shit. I mean, now I can read. I can't read. That ain't what I meant to say. He can't write for shit. A rock in my hand. I was clearly hit with the rock, which broke off my head in a piece and spread pebbles of asphalt all over the property. I am a victim in this case. This is in his grievance, y'all. I am a victim in this case. I was assaulted by an inmate and then threatened and blackmailed by staff. This is the second grievance I've written, and I believe the first was thrown out by an officer. I have informed my family, who will be contacting Tallahassee, whatever investigator, and getting a lawyer. Released. If I am not released from confinement, I have been assaulted, threatened, blackmailed, and pending CM charges, never committed. Please help me. I can't read, Piggy. I can't read. I promise. Hey, y'all hear that though, right? This is what the big blood say. I should probably, man, I should read it. I should probably read that again so I can have a clear copy. But I ain't gonna put y'all through that. But y'all heard that. He didn't fight back. His statement was that he was assaulted and he didn't fight back. He was told that he better fight back. Yeah, this big 1090 Jake that was tearing up the compound. Now, man, I'm glad I stopped at to read that because that was some important details.
Abused and intimidated by the staff, that inmates were threatening him, the staff was threatening him, and that he really needed help. He was not safe in confinement. Specifically saying, I'm being blackmailed, help me. I would then uncover another document in which Jake wrote that because he had wrote the previous document, he was being continuously threatened by staff and denied food and was told that
we got to read these. It's like he's giving a great synopsis of what it says, but the truth is in the details. Let's get these. All right. So, didn't get that wrong. Jacob Cherry. We have to figure out who the fuck Mark Cherry is. Well, I ain't gonna figure it out. That's not, I don't do really investigative or reporting, at least not just yet. I gotta hone my skills to get to that level. But We got to figure out who the fuck Mark Cherry was, because Mark Cherry and Jacob Cherry got assaulted at the same time. That is, we got to figure that out. There's something there. All right.
Was released from confinement.
Oh,
that inmates would attack.
we're reading this. All right. Because I wrote a grievance explaining how I was threatened and blackmailed by staff, I was given DRs for no reason, and the witness to the inmates being beaten by staff, I have been threatened even more by staff and am in the fear for my own safety. On 2/7/14, damn, my boy, less than a month later. Hey, this how I be filing grievances against my job and shit. It's how I be at HR. Not this though. But hey, this how I recommend anybody. If your job play with you, this how you gotta be at HR. You gotta be writing them HR complaints like this. Anyway, I was beaten by staff. I have been threatened more by staff and am in fear of my own safety. On 2/7/14, I received a visit from staff who told me when I leave confinement, I will be beaten. Then my food trays were given to me, missing food and ripped apart. The staff from the main compound now have staff in confinement, threatening me and taking my food. I've been told by staff they will spray me and get to me. They will spray me and set me up with weapons. I have been told if the staff cannot get to me, they will send inmates to assault me. I do not know what else to do. I'm not safe in confinement or on the main compound. Damn. My boy said he ain't even safe in PC. Now I know that's not PC, but you know, that's definitely gonna be the title. I'm not safe in confinement or on the main or on the compound. Awful lot of telling Piggy. They will send inmates to assault me. I do not know what else to do. I'm not safe in the compound. I'm not safe in confinement or on the main compound. I don't want to be put in protective custody because I will still be in this housing unit getting threatened. Still, if I have what the fuck does that say?
Him. As a result, he didn't want protective custody.
Buckle. Feel if I have. I feel if I have a bunkie, I would at least have a witness. Keep writing these grievances until I am helped. I am unsafe at Lancaster CI. I have Lancaster
because that
staff
would mean he had to stay in the facility that he was at, so he wanted to get shipped out, claiming, and I quote, I am unsafe at Lancaster CI. I have Lancaster staff threatening to hurt me physically. I have reported and will keep reporting this to my family, who will be contacting Tallahassee. I have all of the names of the staff threatening me, and I am requesting to get shipped from Lancaster CI. I am not safe. I also have the date time I was threatened and food was taken from me. I am not safe in this facility. Please help me. Of course, this news would make.
He says, taking a video on Quad 4 at 11:50-12. I was visited, threatened at 12:30. Given an empty tray with scraps, which was slammed into my cell. Refused the tray. It's all on camera. Please help me as soon as possible. I can't live here. These are the staff threatening me. Captain Sapp, Sergeant Martin, Sergeant Harger, Sergeant Black, Officer Cooley, and Officer Gross. Please help me.
Headlines. And Jake would soon find himself under the scrutiny of the same platforms that he was using to promote the fact that he had found snitch paperwork on other people, despite the fact that he had.
How about that, y'all? How about that? That's 1090 Jake, 1090 fake.
Handwritten this.
And just wait. We ain't even got to the best. Well, this is a good part. We ain't even got to the part where this ain't even him. This ain't like, that's not even his persona. We're going to get there. I think we're starting to unpack it as we read through these grievances and shit. It's all starting to come undone. What did it say? Fresh Cobar. I think I'm saying it, Fresh Cobar. The woods claiming blood, right? You can get away with that shit down there because it's a whole different politic. But yeah, that part.
Document and obviously was in distress, he would attempt to go on these platforms and explain himself by denying that a grievance was snitch paperwork. Pretty much saying, if you want to write a statement on somebody and snitch, you have to write a statement. A grievance is just that, a grievance.
Bro, I don't know if y'all saw that shit, but at the top of it is in the grievance, you have to write a statement. That's the section where he filled out. It says statement. It is not snitching, but you identifying people, your assaulters by name, what you did or didn't do. Saying that's not snitching. But flip side, This isn't paperwork, and that's not considered snitching, but a newspaper article from over 50 years ago is justifiable confirmation of snitching. That's better than paperwork, though. You know what I mean? These are the same people. And that's why it's important that we do this. And like I say, man, like this video. Make sure y'all go over there and follow Byron Blake. He do way more than just this, but he is, you as you can see, his investigative reporting is exceptional.
Of course, this would spark some debate, as we all saw that Jake specifically named the inmate, but it was not that started the argument. It was the fact that he tried to argue that a general grievance is the same as a grievance in which you identify somebody as the person who attacked you, and is not the same thing. You can snitch on toilet paper. It's still toilet paper, but what you write on it can make you a snitch. Because of the conflict that existed already, just based on the fact that the people around Jake had accepted him and had somewhat taken in a white member to the Bloods, this issue created somewhat of a deeper inner conflict, because now you got members who are saying, hey, I wouldn't have done that, that's snitching. And then you got these other guys who are cool with Jake saying, hey, he just wrote his name, he was writing up the COs, it's not that big of a deal. This would require the big homie to step in and give his opinion. Let's listen to what Corey King had to say.
So it's time for the word I'm looking for. Have some discretion and
Now read between the lines. Read closely between the lines. It sounds to me like Corey King. Y'all don't know who Corey King is. Well, I ain't gonna say who he is. Y'all figure that out on your own. I'm not gonna do. He's trying to avoid saying something that could be used against him in the court of law, because of maybe some potentially ongoing or pending investigations.
the things you don't talk about. Only facts. Listen, do you hear me challenging that? Do you hear me challenging that? Have I felt? I'm gonna use Devon. Devon talked about that. And when Devon talked about it, you didn't hear me say nothing about it. You know why I can't say nothing about it? Devon is 100% right. You can't put a nigga name in a grievance, none of that. I don't give a fuck if a nigga shot you and you ain't got time and he got time. Once you do that, that grievance still goes to a file with your name to the parole board. It goes into the file with his name on it. So guess what? The parole board. So now I'm not saying he intentionally wanted to rattle the motherfucker, but yeah, he should have did that. He erred in doing so.
Why y'all think he got to be so careful about how he's trying to say this? He's saying exactly what he's saying, but he has to try to code it in a way where he's not saying specific verbiage or language that could be, you know what I mean, admissible in court in a detrimental way. Like I say, you'll have to go look up who Corey King is. You know, it won't take you too long, but I'm not gonna do that. Maybe he'll say it, or maybe they'll say it on here, but I'm just not gonna personally say that, because root of it, I don't know it to be fully true, even if it is.
Devon said it. I know I don't fuck with Devon. Clearly he don't fuck with me, but when he said it, niggas already heard me say it behind the scene, like, yo, that's a grievance, bro. Grievances go to the administration. The administration get it, they have to record and store in the file all to and from memos, emails.
And that's exactly why we're able to read it here today, because grievances are reports. Reports are recorded and have to be on file for however many fucking whatever the time frame is. They saying it without saying it, because he gotta say it without saying it.
Letters, faxes, everything to and from, they have to store. Why? Because this is what you call a profile and a paper trail. Anything we do, we write on black and white. They know about it. We learn about it later on. The parole board makes a hearing. And you sitting there, what? Nah, you know, I'm in your mind, motherfucker. Like, he wasn't supposed to write that.
Out of everything that stood out to me in this video, the most important was the fact that Corey King stated that behind the scenes, people had already heard him say that that grievance wasn't right. This said to me that while everybody on the internet was arguing about whether it was snitching or not snitching, the people to whom it really mattered, which was the circle of people that 1090 Jake had affiliated himself with, had already been behind the scenes discussing this, not over the internet, but behind the scenes, behind closed doors. 1090 Jake's circle had acknowledged that he was wrong, which meant that he was subject to being held accountable for that decision, and also that his backing, his security, his validity was starting to look shaky, because now that you've been exposed as a snitch, these guys are not going to be hanging around you. These guys are not going to be letting you come post up in pictures with them when your paperwork is all over the internet and they have gotten word from somebody that they trust, a person who they know has been through the system and has experience in the system. They got word from him saying, yeah, that's wrong. He wasn't supposed to do that. There would be no public outing by these guys, and Corey King would explain why.
I'm not going to 90 Jake and rap. on that part.
Listen close. Hey, Piggy, you right. Grievances are lawful documents. That's how I say, like I said, if your job is playing with you, you better use ChatGPT to draft you up a motherfucking grievance. That's how you protect your shit. They are legal, lawful. You know what I'm saying? Bold letters, underscore. They mean some shit. But pay attention to what he finna say. Listen closely. Read between the lines. He gonna say it clear, but read between the lines because he's not gonna say it explicitly.
Right there, he earned. Somebody else sent me some information of a court case in a document dealing with him, right? You didn't see me come online with it. You know why? CK don't be online trying to expose people, bro. Don't confuse what happened with me and OG Mac with what you're doing out here on the internet. What I did with OG Mac was me step to an individual whose name came up in court document, the court stamp, court seal on it, and he was associated with me. If you're associated with me, if you're running around and we shooting in the gym together, then it's my responsibility and obligation to get you from around us because you're not living right and you did wrong. Devon said it, I know I don't fuck with Devon. Clearly he don't fuck with me, but when he said it, niggas already heard me say it behind the scene, like, yo, that's a grievance, bro. Grievances go to the administration. I said, yeah, no, why I don't get online? If you ask me a question, I can't do anything other than tell the truth. He fucked up with that shit. When Devon said, I said, yo, fuck with this nigga. The nigga's 100% right.
And even though Corey King was confirming that the grievance was wrong, he was still choosing his words carefully. And he would explain why he was doing that while still making it very clear that he did not care at all how 1090 Jake felt about what he was saying.
When you put it online, you do know what to charge for that, right? You know what I mean? My thing is, you know, what's real is real, what's fake is fake. Again, I didn't call 1090 Jake a rat. And no, I'm not worried about what niggas feeling with what I'm saying. Fuck that nigga. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is, when he said I was assaulted by and put that man's name in there, he fucked up. It was an error. He wasn't supposed to do that.
It was starting to look as if playing the paperwork game had caught up to 1090 Jake. And the more people started to question Corey King about his association with 1090 Jake, he would find himself in a position where he had to address it publicly. This meant Jake was back at square one, as he could no longer pretend to be around, as they had made it public knowledge that they had moved him around. At the same time, Jake didn't want to make this a public thing either, because that would lead to people looking into the source of the issue, and it would all lead back to this paperwork. It would be hard for Jake to argue that he didn't snitch or he isn't a rat if the word got out that his own circle had cut him off for having bad paperwork. And what would that mean for his career as a journalist in hip-hop when his whole identity had become exposing snitches? At some point, Jake decides that he's going to do this interview with Bootleg Kev, and in this interview, he's going to address maturing beyond his white blood identity. Now, as we just addressed...
Ain't that some shit? Look, he round the non-street white boy now. And look where this goes now. Now look who we are. Now, MGK did it. Post Malone did it. You know what I'm saying? You got motherfuckers who do it in different... Jim Carrey did it, who do it in different aspects of black culture and shit like that. This is maybe the first, well, I ain't gonna say it's the first time, it ain't, but well, you see motherfuckers use it with the gang shit. Well, actually, I'm tripping, Mark. No, we ain't gonna do that. All right, well, because I'm not sure. That's the only reason. I'm gonna look it up. And the next time I get on here, the people that he's trying to disown his affiliations, quote unquote, are to be around people. We'll get there. We're gonna listen, but we're gonna listen.
And saw Jake had been moved around, but his account would be different during this interview. During this interview, he would basically say that he became 30 years old and looked around and said, man, I'm doing better than all these guys. I need to move around. That's the clean version. I will give y'all the dirty version, but I don't want to use his clip in my video. Still, some of the things he said, a lot of the things he said came off as very disrespectful to the guys that he once recognized as big homies and big brothers. And while people mostly applauded him for his quote unquote growth, there were still a lot of people who were like, why did he have to say it like that? He would go on saying things like, most of the older Bloods from New York and the original members of the East Coast Bloods are broke. My thing is, Jake makes it sound as if being 30 is too old to bang. But when
you're talking about Corey King, though, and they're not broke. It's more to it than that. They don't got them snitch dollars he got from, you know, they're not broke. They're not, like I say, they're not. Let me let Byron go because he kind of explains it pretty good.
Look at his timeline and you look at the people he gave praise to, guys like T. Rogers, still banging at an old age. Corey King, he pictured here with him throwing up signs. Corey King, well over 30 in this picture. When you look at even the guys he took to No Jumper, come on, man, these ain't no, look at dude in that red hat, man. Dude is 40 something. So when you look around and you see that most of these guys are already in their 30s when Jake comes around them and starts hanging, it's like they wasn't too old to bang when you needed them for validation. And you cannot deny that that validation and that company is what helped you reach the peak that you reached. It was this validation that took you from just another guy on YouTube telling prison stories to the guy that is going around checking everybody's paperwork and has the authority and the credibility to do so. When you take that and couple it with the fact that you yourself have bragged about paperwork being the main source of your income,
it'd be like, why you always worried about paperwork? You always talking about somebody's paperwork. Always in somebody's business speaking about paperwork. I wonder why.
it's easy to see why people feel like the stuff he said in that interview was disrespectful, and also how they could feel used after hearing you talk about how broke they are, after hearing you talk about how much money you've made off of their company. So while Jake would like us to believe that he just dropped his red flag and picked up a book and said, hey, I'm 30, I changed my life, I don't think that's the truth at all. I think he got the boot. He's just a little more comfortable in his space now. He got a little more money, so he feel like, hey, I can cut ties with whoever and I'll still be straight. But we gonna see how long that lasts, considering that he's still trying to do paperwork. After this blunder with Larry Hoover, he might be in trouble. I don't think he's gonna have a lane in that paperwork thing at all no more. Simply because he went out on a limb and tried to present the argument that Larry Hoover is a snitch and used a newspaper article as the basis for his argument. He's presenting this newspaper article like it's testimony transcripts or a police report. But this is the same guy who argued that writing a grievance, naming somebody and saying that they hit you isn't snitching. That whole argument alone tells you that Jake is either somebody who likes to move the goalpost, or he isn't a person who fully understands what snitching is. And like, he has to see such and such told on this person on this. He had to see it like that to know that it's snitching. He don't know how to just naturally feel and interpret like, no, that's telling right there. Even if it's subliminal.
Which I don't find that likely. It's more likely the first.
Or dry snitching, as they like to call it. He don't know how to sense it, you know? So it's obvious that he needed these guys around. He was soaking up things from these guys, not just hand signs and stuff, but actual game. You could see it in his mannerisms. The way he was talking in that interview on No Jumper is not the same way he was talking in the interview with Lockdown 23-1. I ain't just talking about the sound that he was making. I'm talking like the body posture and everything. Look at how he's sitting and moving in this No Jumper interview that he did after he linked up with these guys.
Blood, and then, you know, you can set trip on really any other gang too, but it's just like putting it on my name. I went at it with more Bloods inside of prison than anyone else. We got so much numbers, we'll have inner beef. I wasn't hitting up Crips left and right, Zoes left and right. I was beefing with other Bloods. So that's where set tripping comes from.
Now compare that to just a few years before, when he was on the interview on Lockdown 23-1, before he started hanging around those guys.
So I hope someone sees this, man, and does some kind of shit.
A lot has happened. Mind you, when I got out, I called the chaplain at Lancaster.
It's
and
the
I said,
mop,
how can
not
you
the
claim
wop,
to be a
Andrew.
Christian and you know exactly
What's
what's
going
going
on
on
with
at
you?
Lancaster? You know exactly what they do.
With that said, man, I'm gonna wrap this up. I just wanted to bring this to y'all. There's been a lot of talk about this whole Jake dropping his flag thing, man. I don't think he grew up. I think he got blew up.
All right, so that's that. But this ain't this not the end of it. But we almost there. Now we just need the final part of this is we gonna find out exactly who 1090 Jake been portraying to be. Who did he get this image from? Who's the real 1090 Jake? Andrew, what's going on with you, man? It's the mop, not the wop. Nope. Bear with me, y'all. There we go. Let's figure out who Cornbread was.
On today's episode of 1090 Jake Exposed, we're gonna dive back down into the Tampa streets and discuss what many people who know Tampa and know 1090 Jake describe as one of 1090 Jake's worst nightmares. Now, I've never been to Tampa, but one thing that I can see is that if you really from Tampa, it don't matter if you white, black, Hispanic. The people that's from Tampa gonna know you. No matter what walk of life you come from, there's gonna be somebody from the city that can say, hey, I know this dude, I heard about him. Now, in this case, we got nobody that's vouching for 1090 Jake that's actually from the city. But this next guy that I'm gonna tell you about, a lot of people vouching for him. And that explains to me why 1090 Jake wanted to keep their encounter a secret. But enough of this talking, let's dive in. In the beginning of 1090 Jake's journey, he did this video where he covered all of his disciplinary reports and other situations he had been into while he was incarcerated. Let's watch this flashback.
Let me speed this up.
So, let's see what I did. While the officer was assigned at Q Dorm, which was confinement, and conducting a security check, the officer observed me, myself, and another inmate striking each other about the blank. I don't know why they blanked it out, because if you go lower on this page, it just says the torso and the face. We were striking each other with closed fists. So basically, we were just fighting in the cell, and they came, they gassed us. It wasn't nothing too crazy, you know what I mean? It was just a simple fight. 30 days of confinement for the fight. And then because of the fact that we refused to stop fighting when they told us to stop fighting, they gassed us. So this was my second time being
Hold
for a
on.
fight.
Let's look
And
at
then
this
because of
date.
the fact
Look at this date. Okay. Okay, that was after. Because now that we know that he stated that he was forced blackmailed to misrepresent his position on them, that we know that he misrepresented his position on or what really happened in those grievances, or he was forced to. We gotta actually check the dates and times on that shit, because we know that what was it, 114 and 27, those were that's around the time of him getting fucked up, and he didn't and being forced to say that he defended himself even though he didn't, as he outlined in his grievance.
that we refused to stop fighting when they told us to stop fighting, they gassed us. So this was my second time being gassed. But it was only the little can of gas. It wasn't the big, bad can of gas they hit me with the first time, so it really wasn't that bad. And I mean, they really got the other guy more than they got me. But
Now, if you notice, Jake did not give us the specifics, the gritty, grimy details that he normally does when telling his prison stories. In fact, he kind of breezed through this one as if he really didn't want to mention it, but he had to mention it, but he didn't want to go too deep into it. He just wanted to get it over with. As evidenced by the red markings, he also personally redacted the inmate's name out of this ticket, just like he did with the Jimmy situation. When he showed us Jimmy's ticket, he personally marked Jimmy's name out, just like with this inmate, because he didn't want anybody to be able to find out who this person was, because he was lying about the way these stories went. Remember, he told us that Jimmy got his face slashed open, and that was determined to be a lie.
hit by Zoe, put a brick from the
Jimmy,
basketball court.
that's who we gotta find. I got to find. That's the story we gotta find of who Jimmy was, because Jimmy is the real Jake. That's what I'm hunting down. And if I can't find it, I hope it covers that in here. That is the last video. I'm trying to find it without going all over the place. Hopefully that'll be the next one. We'll land right. Hopefully the next one where we land on. And if that's not this one, because that's what we're trying to get to. I'm trying to find the one about Jimmy, because that is the one that tells you who 1090 Jake really is, or excuse me, who the persona of 1090 Jake comes from.
No, I was in confinement when this whole shit happened, so they had him come out, and then they hit him with a real box cutter blade, ripped this whole shit open.
Wow.
He back in Haiti right now. I looked him up when I got up.
You looked him up?
Yeah, big dumbass scar on his face.
Yeah.
After 1090 Jake was exposed, when a handwritten grievance was discovered showing that he had actually written the warden and named Jimmy as the person who assaulted him with a rock and a sock, he would attempt to explain himself. Of course, he would try to flip things on Jimmy by producing a witness statement written by Jimmy that was written after 1090 Jake had already written his statement. But Jimmy's not the one who's out here calling people snitches and that was written after 1090 Jake had already written his statement, but Jimmy's not the one who's out here calling people snitches and producing paperwork. So while Jake may have thought that he was exposing Jimmy and deflecting, he actually gave us what we came for, which is proof that Jimmy was the person whose name he had personally redacted, and also that Jimmy was the person who he was referring to when he said this guy hit him over the head and got his face cut open. So when I saw that Jake had posted this disciplinary report and had personally redacted the name of the guy he was fighting, I went and did the homework and got a copy of it myself so I can see who this guy is. Now, as you see in the top right corner, this incident happened June 15th, 2014 at the Appalachia East Unit. Let's read the non-redacted version. Inmate Cherry Jacob is being charged with 2-4 fighting, rule prohibited conduct, chapter 33, 601, 314. On June 15, 2014, at approximately 12:27 a.m., while assigned as Q confinement officer and conducting a security check of Q2 Quad 1, Officer K. Williams observed inmate Cherry Jacob, DC number C07652, and inmate Welch Jason, DC number T52484, in cell Q2 206, engaged in mutual combat, striking one another about the heads and upper torsos with closed fists. I repeatedly issued the two inmates verbal orders to cease their actions with no results. Inmate Cherry remains in disciplinary confinement pending the disposition of this report. The shift OIC was notified and authorized this report. Once I got this unredacted copy of the disciplinary report, I was able to look this person up and find out that it was this guy, Jason Welch, from Tampa, goes by the nickname of Cornbread. This is one of Cornbread's earlier mugshots. In fact, this...
Correction. Jason, not Jimmy. Jason. That's the one who really got sliced in the eye. That's the one who... Let's go.
Mugshot is from a 2012 conviction, which is around the time that he was incarcerated with 1090 Jake. This is the latest photo of Cornbread that we have available to us right now. According to the streets of Tampa, everybody knows Cornbread. Now, what you know him for may differ. It depends on who you're talking to. You might know him for stealing. You might know him for something else. But in the streets of Tampa, everybody knows the white boy Cornbread. He also goes by the name Cornbread Jason. So he's either Cornbread or Cornbread Jason. This is his current sentence history. I guess this is the sentence that he's on probation for. Even though he's actually fighting the case right now, this is the current sentence that he was out on parole or probation for. But if we go back and look at this again, you can see that Cornbread has a very, very lengthy criminal history. As a matter of fact, he had been doing time probably about 10 years before Jake even came into the system. According to people close to the situation, it was actually Cornbread's reputation that sparked the incident between him and Jake. See, according to this source, this was not Jake and Cornbread's first time running into each other. They had actually met in the reception center. And even though height-wise Cornbread was only 5'3", he was a solid 170 pounds. So when Jake came in the cell with this loudmouth act telling all of these stories about things that he had done in Jit camp, it triggered Cornbread, especially because he remembered the encounter that Jake had in reception.
But I locked down with Bone, the GD, and the cut, and Bone was like, hey, bro, you gotta get your TOH. I'm talking about, bro, we go at it for like 2 seconds, Bone had me yoked up like this. I can't move, I'm laid out on the floor, stretched out, beating that shit. I'm talking about the whole time we were locked down, though. So you know this is like 30 minutes or an hour. So when I came out, I'm talking about my whole stomach, ribs, and chest, like, you can see all the blood under my skin busted up. He was like,
Now, I don't know if y'all know the test of heart, the TOH, that's the test of heart. When you hit the compound or JIT camps, typically is what they talking about. There's a test of heart where your people, your car is gonna figure out if you like that. They gonna fuck you up. Damn, like you getting put on again type shit. You getting put on prison term, for lack of better words. I don't know if y'all just heard that, but he got a TOH by the GDs. Now, that raises two concerns. First of all, why are you getting, now if you blood, why are you getting the TOH by, you know what I'm saying, a different car? Secondly, oh, the GDs fucked you up, huh? Keep that in mind, y'all. Remember, he don't like them. He don't like GDs. Keep that in mind.
break it off, you gonna break it off? I said, yeah, I break it off. The second he let me go, I hit his ass. Boom, they went to flip me again. But we was cool as shit, though, you feel me? It was just on some shit like, you gotta get one to give one, you feel me?
Now, what you just heard was Jake describing how the other guys he was allegedly cool with beat him until he was all bruised up. He calls it a TOH, but no prison that I've been to requires you to get beat on by the other inmates to prove that you are cool. This kind of puts me in the mind of the story about Bimba and Rambo slapping Jake till his mouth bloody, and he thinking it's just playing, but in reality, they was grooming him, you know. Anyway, Cornbread, who was around 24 years old at the time, he and Jake were cellies, he's about 5 years older than Jake. He wasn't about to let some kid who literally let these other guys beat him till he was bruised come in there and talk crazy to him in the cell. And I think Jake underestimated him, and that's where it went left. I heard Cornbread flashed out so bad that you could hear him hitting Jake 3 or 4 cells down the hall. And when the COs came and told him to stop, he still wouldn't stop, which is why they eventually ended up spraying him and why Jake said this when he was talking about it.
So this was my second time being gassed, but it was only the little can of gas. It wasn't the big, bad can of gas they hit me with the first time, so it really wasn't that bad. And I mean, they really got the other guy more than they got me. But yeah.
Well, of course they got him.
Why they get
more than they got you. He was the one that they were actually trying to stop.
Fucking you up.
Now, somebody else who was familiar with this story and actually from Tampa told me that the story that Jake tells about the young guy that he ran into who claimed he was a blood and Jake made him fold his flag and then he ran into the guy later on at another facility is actually the story of Jake and Cornbread, where Cornbread actually ran into Jake in the county and made Jake stop claiming blood and told him he not from Tampa, and then ended up running into Jake again in the facility and told him, hey, stop claiming blood, you're not from Tampa, and then end up running into him again at ACI, and that's where he actually beat Jake up in the cell and wouldn't stop until the COs actually used mace to get him off of Jake. That's how they ended up with this disciplinary report, and according to my source, that's also how Jake ended up under Rambo. Like, he started really hanging up under Rambo after that incident happened, and then Rambo starts slapping blood into his mouth, and somehow he ends up being best friends with Bimba, who ends up slapping blood into his mouth.